Hey guys, my name's TZ. How you guys doing? And in this video, I am giving you a park tour in Arizona, which is going to be a 5-part series where I'm going to build a park, or I have built a park in each of the campaign maps. Without no further ado, and let's reveal the park. So as you can see here, this is Jurassic World Arizona, and so this is a map I've built I think a couple of months ago now, and basically this is a very large, it's one of the largest maps in the game, but there are some bigger maps out there, but in this map there's definitely a lot of space to build a lot of enclosures, and as you can see here, there's quite a lot of dinosaurs, as you can see, and the fact that we even have this massive enclosure, like we're talking over 15 pseudoceratopsids all in this entire park. Let's just unpause this, shall we? In this enclosure, with also a few Camarosauruses as well. And so let's actually start this park tour in the beginning. So as you can see here, you arrive at the arrival point, and then you're greeted with this very, very long path. Now, as a mistake that I have built here as a park builder, is that I wouldn't recommend building these very long roads that go from one point to the other. I would always recommend to always weave around and to never have a path that's so straight. And in my opinion, also the fact that you lay out all these shops across one row is a little bit repetitive, and so I would recommend using only a few of these in like an area at a time to bring more diversity and bring more, I guess, uniqueness to each area of your park. But I have other places that I have definitely done better in, and that is, for example, the layout of this little area here. So you can see here, this little path then leads out to a Spinosaurus enclosure. Is our first enclosure that we were looking at, and as we can see here, we have two Spinosauruses. We have this guy, very green looking, a little bit of red to be honest, and then also this guy as well, just amongst the trees. And so how I built this enclosure is I used some of the other tree types that you have in the game. So for example, you obviously have your, you don't actually have trees in general, you don't have a forest brush in the desert, but I used the seed plants to create this almost very vibrant looking forest here. And obviously as a pescivore, the Spinosauruses are, you just need to build a very big lake in their paddock to just illustrate the idea that it's deep, it's water, they like it, and so if you're ever going to build a pescivore enclosure, just include a lot of water. Let's move on to the next area, which is this double enclosure. So we have this side on the left being a enclosure for the Nigersaurus. Now, I do love these creatures. They look very adorable with their big mouths and the fact that their necklines are horizontal and not vertical, like the Brachiosaurus or the Miniminchosaurus. The idea in this paddock here is that I actually introduced the concept of elevation. Now, if you want to make your parks look better, you want to introduce elevation into your paddocks here. And if we look on this side, this is definitely a better look or better version of how I do a lake or a river. So you can see a lot of different angles and not everything so uniform. And also had this little division here, which looks really cool. It has little trees and stuff around, you know. And also another good technique I would recommend doing when you make rivers is if you have a dirt tool or the sand tool, you actually like to add a little bit of a rim to the edges, which will then makes them look wet. Yeah, makes them wet. And to, you know, illustrate the fact that this is very close to the water and this is very far away from the water. So, you know, and then in here we have a few Pentaceratopsids, which they look very interesting, I tell you. That very high frill they have. It's very unique, I tell you. But let's move on to the next enclosure, which we have is a pack of Herrerasauruses. Now, Herrerasauruses do look really cool, especially with this very splotchy look. There are some that don't have this, like here. Actually, this guy kind of does, but, you know, they all have it. But another example of elevation used in this paddock is the idea that they're like mounds, which kind of prevent this river from going right through. Another thing that you might not know about rivers is that rivers do like to bend and curve a lot. If you study geography, you will know a lot about this. But obviously this is a man-made park, but you know, just to make this look a little bit more realistic. And also adding these little rocks near the end of like a bit of puddle water around here is just gonna add that little effect of like dried water. The fact this could have been a lot taller or higher in water depth. And so I think that's a really cool detail you can add to these paddocks, is adding little rocks there. And we'll see over here we have a lagoon for 2 mosasaurs. So we have one over here and one over here. There's a nice green one here. Now personally I haven't delved much into the decoration sides for the lagoons, as it isn't really a thing I would do a lot. But if you're intrigued and you definitely love aquatic animal, dinosaur, marine reptiles actually, in Jurassic Revolution 2, then I would recommend to decorate. And let's move on to this area of the park. Now for me, I'm a bit of a world builder. I like to build stories around a park, and for this instance, this park would have been built around an older version of the park. So you can see I used a bit of the Jurassic Park galleries here just to illustrate that this was like an older part of the park compared to, let's say, the newer part, which is using the DFW viewing galleries, which, you know, look more modern, of course. But over here you can see there's actually a few Tyrannosauruses, and there's a small one here from, I believe, Camp Cretaceous as well, and obviously you got the big ones too, which do look pretty cool. And again, another instance of elevation and just a little more depth into the area. So for example, I have this little like rock here. It's very flat and very dry, but makes sense. We are in a desert, so don't be afraid of just leaving entire patches of land dry and no like vegetation, because you are tempted to actually just do this with your area like this, just to cover that. But it doesn't look the same, you know. Leaving it all dry just gives more sense that you are in a desert, which we are in a desert clearly. And then over here in this other paddock, which is very big as well, and it's actually housing a lot of Bryonyxes, and we actually have quite a few in here. I think we have 10 Bryonyxes in here, which is quite a lot. But also the use of this very like mountain range, it's like a hill, to be honest. It's a hill. For like this it just breaks up the water. Instead of just making this one big ass puddle, you can just kind of separate it with like natural details. So let's move on to something I love to do in every park I build, which is more like a guest facility, but like a guest amusement park. This is mostly for the guest and doesn't really add to any part of the actual functionality of the park, but something I'd love to do is, like, for example, in this park specifically is to add these little walkways. There's like little like wonder paths, you know, you're just walking amongst like little palm trees, and like, you know, this makes a bit of more natural nature. I don't know, it just adds something, you know. And I've done this for a few areas here. We've done here, and then also a bit back there as well. But also adding, of course, these guest amenities. Now here's actually a good example of less is more. Just having these 3 here do look really good here. And another thing I would tell you guys to do, but I didn't do here clearly, is to customize the build, you know, customize it. You know, it just brings more life in the fact that they're not all identical. But I know a bit tedious, so, you know, but, you know, I would recommend, if you want to make a nicer looking park, just change out the look of each of these things, because look at that slight difference there, which is good. Looks great. We also have this very small lagoon here with a bunch of Ichthysauruses, and so they're just swimming around here having a good time. And then if we actually move on to another part of the park, which is a kind of a hotel area, I would say this is kind of essential for every park that you build in, because if you don't build a hotel section, it's like, where do the park goers stay then? Where do they stay? But it depends on what you're going to build in your park, but it's important to at least acknowledge where the guests would stay if they're in this park. And this is one of them. So here is a enclosure for the T-Rexes / Compsognathus. So we have 2 T-Rexes here. We got Belios and Lucifer. It's a very red, very dark looking T-Rex. That's why I call them that. And you also got a bunch of Compies, which you can always just add to your larger carnivore enclosures, because they won't eat them. And they're just going to be around, just jumping around, hopping, you know, being cute and all that, but also pretty deadly too. If we actually then move on to this area of the park, so again, another guest section here. You've got these little facilities here. Well, now this is actually a good example of me actually customizing each of the stores, the amenities, I should say. And so this is actually a really good thing you should be doing, because it just brings more diversity and just makes your buildings look all unique and not all the same. And over here, you can see this is our what I call the double triangle enclosures. So we have one side, which is the Carnotauruses. So you got a bunch of them here. I think about 4. Got yellow, greens, and browns. And then we have a group of Pachycephalosauruses, which they look really cool, I have to say, especially with this the different colorization tools you can get on these guys as well. And of course, we need to cover this area, which is I'd say one of my favorite enclosures with a lot of like water. You can see this is like the lake, but then this is where the origins of the lake come from, like these little points here. We have also a little facility here. This is what I would say where the dinosaur capture teams would be and how they run the whole place. But then you also have another nature walk here as well, which I do like adding. These are very cute and very adorable. And if we go into first person here, you can really almost get immersed into how this would look in real life. So you can see all these palm trees and these lights if this was at nighttime. But actually, while we're at it, we're really next to the aviary, which is a 3-domed aviary with just pteranodons. So you can see they're just flying in. And also another key thing I would highly recommend to do in your parks is to decorate the inside of the aviaries. Don't just add water and a pescivore feeder. Gotta get some rocks. Especially the fact that pteranodons love rocks and they need rocks to live in their habitat. So adding rocks, and a lot of them, would just give a little bit more extra detail to these little aviaries, and also more places for them to sit and to sleep. And also then this little section here, now you don't have to add this, but for me personally it just adds more realism. It's a storage facility, so got lots of crates, a lot of cranes, and even cages to how the dinosaurs got there. And also got hatcheries here, which are not unnecessary. You can just get rid of these after you've built the park. And after adding all the dinosaurs in here, which I believe, how many dinosaurs are in this park? 155 dinosaurs. It's quite a lot. And also finally, we have this lagoon here, this almost S-shaped looking lagoon. And these have elasmosauruses in here, which I do really like the look of because they have these very spiky, aggressive look to them. And so I think, to be honest with you, this is probably it for the video. Actually, let me think here. I've given you some other tips here and that, and it's just an overview of the park. Let me go into capture mode so you can see a better view of this entire park. You can see it's very big, very, very big indeed. If we zoom into more areas, you see there's the Tyrannosaurus paddock, there's the Nasutoceratops / Camarasaurus enclosure. Look at them, all just walking in the water. How adorable. We have the lagoon here. We have the Ouranosaurus enclosure. We have the Nigersaurus enclosure. Oh, what the hell is he doing? Oh, just walking. We have the Pentaceratops enclosure. So I think that's it for the video, guys. I think I've given you all the tips I could show you here in this video. Part 2 of this video will come out eventually. But guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you found this informative, because I hope you guys will be building better parks with my tips that I have now given you. So guys, don't forget to take it easy, and